Hi, welcome to the small shed. This week I'm building a universal system for mounting bench grinders and that. See you in a minute. Now in this case it's actually in the garage, but it could well just as easily be in the shed. I've got two different bench grinders. I've got a small metal chop saw and I've got another small vise that I want to mount on the bench, but there isn't enough bench space to mount them all at once and they'd all get in the way of one another. So rather than have lots of different bolt fixings and holes in the bench, so I'm just building an MDF plate that I can standardize and mount the tools on and then bolt them on and off as and when I need them. So let's go and have a look at it now. I've got two bench grinders, one I use with a polishing mop on it for aluminium polishing, and I've got the one that's got the belt sander on it as well for sharpening things, as well as a traditional stone wheel. The fixing holes, unfortunately, on both of these are very slightly different, and my original idea was that I would put in some threaded inserts. They're the same width apart, but they're slightly further front to back, so I'd probably effectively put 6 in and then you could use the relevant 4. That poses a problem then with future upgrades or incompatibility with anything else you might want to use on there, and also in particular when I come to use the polishing wheel, because not only do I want to use it and it pushes it a lot further out from the end of the bench, very often I want to use it that way round, because if you're polishing something like a cylinder head, you want to be able to get underneath it almost with the polishing, and you can't do that if it's on the bench quite so easily. It gets in the way. So what I've decided to do is to simplify it, because I've also got a chop saw, metal chop saw I might want to use. So what I'm going to do is get a standard size that's probably around that size somewhere, square or oblong, I'm not sure which yet, need to think about it a bit more, and put in 4 threaded inserts into the bench, and then have individual plates made of timber onto which you mount each piece of equipment with the same size plate with the same hole spacings. And if I put that in if I put the mounting holes in a square, it means you can mount it that way or that way perfectly satisfactorily. So I need to just go away now and think about what I've got, what I might want to upgrade to in the future, and get some idea, but at least it would then only put 4 holes in the top of the bench instead of 6 rising to probably 10 or 12 over a period of time. If I've got something that's a standardized plate, hopefully then it'll do me for anything else I might want to upgrade to. Right, so I'm just going to have a look in my box of leftovers from various jobs. That's mainly the stuff that I use in the metal section, rolling cabinets and that, so I don't think there's anything in there that'll be of use. There's a lot of stuff there that's left over from the shed, but they are predominantly 8mm bolts and threaded inserts, and I think that's probably a bit overkill for a bench grinder. But I have got some 6mm ones in there, and I've got some other nuts and bolts down there that are 6mm. So I think we'll go with 6mm threaded inserts, relatively small washers, because there's not always a lot of room around to do these things up. It doesn't need a huge washer, because it'll actually be mainly on the head of the on the top of the machine, the actual pressure. So we'll go with those. I think we'll get 4 of those out, put them in the bench, and then cut ourselves some MDF patterns for putting the machines on. Right, so that's got us a couple of 300mm squares. One of them I'll use for one of the machines, and I'll use another one as a template marker to actually mark out the holes in the bench. I've got the other appliance. The reason this is so big is because I've got a chop saw, metal chop saw, which I want to mount, as well as the grinders, and that's quite substantial, and I needed the width to get the footprint of the saw in it. So that'll be one thing, and then these will have to have some sort of a rack made to slide in and out with the different grinders and things on them in the garage. That's it. It's got my diagonals right, so we know it's square, 340 across that way, 340 across that way. So I can use that now as a template to drill all the other plates and to drill all the sockets in the bench, so that it doesn't matter whether you put it that way or that way, it'll still fit. I'll just drill the holes out later to a bolt size that I need for the inserts. Right, now the parts washer I've got's got a footprint of 460 by 340, so I've got 500mm there. It's 460 deep, so it can go either sideways or facing you in that space. That'll give me a footprint to put the grinders in. So I'll just mark the first holes with the template. That's it, and I can increase those hole sizes then from there upwards and put the threaded inserts in. Right, so I've marked out the four little, I've just done little pilot holes. Just going to now drill out for the inserts. I've done a test piece first. I think it's an 8mm drill for these to wind into, and I just did a little test just to make sure first that I wasn't digging it too big. That. And then just a matter of putting in the insert, the Allen key to drive it in. And then you just screw them in. Try and keep it vertical until it gets a bit of a bite. Once you've got it going, it'll just true itself up and then in flush with the surface. And that's it, done. And so for the machines themselves now, all I need to do is again get the small drill and run it through the same template into the new base plate for whichever machine I'm using or going to fit, and then I'll just open those out. I'm putting 6mm bolts through, so I'll probably give myself a little bit of slack, put a 6.5mm drill through, but I don't think could be a problem. So what that's given me now is a standard base plate for a bench grinder or anything. I can do the same with 3 or 4 others. Mount the actual tool onto this, and then in the particular case of the one with the polishing mop on it, it means I can move it 90 degrees and it should still be a fit without any problem. So it's sort of universal, and if I do ever get to the great heights of a Sorby Pro Edge or anything, again you just put it on one of these bases and then you can just take the machine out and stack it somewhere on its base plate. When you want to swap it for something else, another one in. So, and with this bench grinder with the mop on the end, what I'll do is I'll mount it onto this plate roughly at the front edge, slightly to the right hand side, and what that means is when I want to use the polishing mop I can just take it off and put it in that way, and I can use it that way. Good. I think I'll just give these a coat of varnish just to keep them tidy before I start using them, before I bolt the machines down. So I hope that was of interest. It's one of those things that when you haven't got much room or you haven't got much bench space, it is useful to have, just to save having lots and lots of holes in a bench or not being able to fix things properly. You end up putting G-cramps on things to hold them down, which isn't really ideal. So I hope it was of interest. Look forward to seeing you next week. We'll make something different, I hope, and I'll see you then. Bye.